Hello and welcome to Take Drop. My name's Jeff, I'm glad you're here. Let's just jump right in. By the end of this short video, you'll understand how to use the take and drop functions to get or remove the first or last number of rows from a range. Let's head straight to Excel, exercise 1. Here we have sales by month. Here we want to write a formula that just gives us the first or last number of rows. To do that, we'll use the take function, equals take. Here, we define the array. This is the range that contains the values we want to return, comma, and then we specify the number of rows. So if we want to take the first 3 rows, we would use a 3. Close function and enter. And now you can see we have the first 3 rows. Let's say we wanted the whole first half. We could just change this 3 to a 6, enter. And now that's going to return the first 6 rows. We can also retrieve rows from the end. So for example, if we wanted the last 3 months, we would do -3, enter. And now we get the last 3 months. If we wanted the second half, we would just use -6 and enter. And now we get the last 6 rows. In addition to the rows argument, we also have an optional columns argument. If we only want the first column, we would use a 1, and that returns the first column. And we can also take columns from the right. So for example, if we wanted the last column, we would use -1, and we got it. In this case, we want all the columns, so I'm just going to remove that columns argument value and hit enter. So that is the take function. We specify the number of rows and or columns that we want to get. What if we wanted to specify the number of rows that we want to leave behind? Well, that takes us to the next exercise, exercise 2. The reciprocal to the take function is the drop function, equals drop. So once again, we specify the array that just has the values we want to return, comma, and then the number of rows to drop or leave behind. Let's say 0, I want everything. Close function and enter. And as you can see, this also returns this header because it was included in my range. What if we wanted to leave the header row behind? Well, we would just change this rows argument to 1 and enter. And that's going to leave the first row within my range behind. What if we wanted to remove the first quarter? Well, let's try this again. Equals drop. And now I'm just going to grab my data rows, comma. Let's grab everything for now, 0, close function and enter. And now we have our data. Let's say we wanted to drop the first quarter. We would change this rows argument to 3. Enter. And now it drops those first 3 rows. What if we wanted to remove the last 3 rows? Well, we would just flip this to a -3. Enter. And now you can see it leaves October, November, and December behind. Okay. And as you can see, we also have an optional columns argument. This specifies the number of columns to leave behind. For example, if we want to leave the first column behind, we could use a 1, close function and enter, and now it leaves out the month column and just returns the sales. We can also go from the end, so we could do a -1, and as expected, it leaves that sales column behind. Here though, we want all the columns, so I'm going to take that columns argument out. Perfect. Now, what if we wanted to get something within the middle? Well, that brings us to the next exercise, exercise 3. Let's say we want to get Q2. That's going to be April, May, and June. And these rows are in the middle. So we could combine take and drop functions in the same formula. Let's say, for example, we start with take from this range, comma, and we only wanted the first 6 rows. Close function and enter. And now we can drop the first 3 rows of that. So we would drop the results of the take function, comma, the first 3 rows. Close function and enter. And now we've got Q2. And by the way, I also know we could just go equals and point it to these cells and hit enter. So like, when would I use which approach? Well, the nice thing about the take and drop functions is it is dynamic. So if these results were stored in a table and we kept copying and pasting new rows into this table, take would always take, let's say, the last row or the most current transactions. So if this is static and this is a one-time only project, you may just want to point a range to those cells. But these functions are very handy on recurring use workbooks where we're updating the source range and we always want like the last 3 or most recent sales transactions. Now in this case, we did take first and then drop. We could also reverse that. So let me clear all this stuff out and let's go equals drop from this range, comma, and we want to drop the first 3. close function and enter. And now we can use the take function, and the array is the results of the drop function, comma, and only take the first three, close function and enter. So these functions are very flexible. We can nest them with each other. We can specify beginning or end of list, and we can also specify columns. Hopefully this has been helpful. Thanks for joining me. Have a great day. Hey Excel user, if you ever need to create summary reports, check out my pivot table for beginners video. It starts at the beginning and shows how to store the data transactions in a table, and then how to summarize those transactions with a pivot table report. I hope it helps unlock the incredible power of pivot tables.
This video is a production of Excel University.